What's up guys, welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/MaliciousCompliance. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story is called, Boss Tells Me Not to Email Any of Her Bosses Because Only She Can Communicate with Them. Years ago, I was working for a large organization. My boss was very nice and pleasant to work with, at first. I was hired and tasked with taking a very troubled department and bringing it up in standards. My boss was fairly supportive during the initial months on the job, but then something changed. The department began to perform and improve greatly within the first 6 months, and this was recognized and heralded by upper management. This made my boss look good and also improved overall morale on the team within the troubled department, as they were finally recognized for their efforts and talents. About this time, 6-month mark, I was told to watch my back by a few other colleagues, both men and women, outside of my department, because my boss had a reputation for putting her own success over anyone else's. They also warned me that she was known for being very threatened by any successful males who work with her. Male here, she was a very big champion for the women on her team, and regularly promoted and advocated for them, but it seems that every male that worked on her team ended up leaving or getting fired. This was something I was not aware of when I was hired. I am also the only male on the team. After investigating this further, I found there to be some truth in all of this. As it happens, over a 12-year period, over 8 men on her team either quit or were fired. 6 fired and 2 quit. Of the women on her team during the same period, 8 were promoted, 2 quit, 4 were still on her team, and 0 were fired. So I am a bit concerned with this now as 1, I am a male, and 2, she has this reputation for making it difficult for men on her team. I just took this all in stride, however, and focused on continuing to manage the department to greater levels. Work on continuing to increase the morale of the department and ensuring I communicate with my boss regularly about any situation that would become problematic for her or me. I also focused on ensuring that she got maximum credit for the improvements of the troubled department and credited her with being a great boss that ensured that the department received the resources and support that it needed to succeed. Fast forward to my 8th month there, and I am in a meeting with my boss, and she begins to rage against me that I emailed someone who was in upper management of the company. I explained to her that yes, I did CC the VP because the email in question was one that necessarily involved the entire area under which this particular VP led. She said I am not to do that, and then proceeds to tell me that I am forbidden to email anyone that is above my pay grade, as that is not my place. She then tells me that only she is allowed to email these people, and that if an email needs to go to them, CC or not, she will send it. I ask her if she would like me to send the emails that would need to go to the vice presidents to her, for her to send, and she tells me, yes, send them to me and then I will send them. I also ask her if she wishes for me to not call the VPs on the phone as well, and she says, yes, you are not allowed to call them either. Then she goes, I know you may be used to getting your way because you're a man, but this doesn't mean you can try and take my job. What? I'm kind of befuddled at this and just take it all in and decide that I need to respect her wishes, because there must be something else going on here of which I am not aware. Okay, fine. We will do it your way. About a month goes by, and during that time, I only needed to email a vice president once, and I write up the email to this vice president's department, send it to her, and then wait for her to send it on. Now, this email is time sensitive and involves giving the vice president and his people a heads up about resources needed for a particular project. Now, the vice president must be included in this email because this request involved budgetary issues, and only the vice president over a specific area is allowed to change or adapt their budget. Otherwise, I would have just communicated directly with the members of this other vice president's team to give them the heads up. So I send the email to my boss, ask her to send it on within the next 3 days, and then I wait. About a week goes by, and I happen to run into this particular vice president in the elevator. She asked me about the project, resources, etc., and I let her know that things are good. She then asks me about the overrun on this one particular area, and I tell her that it is best that she ask my boss. She then asks me to send her an email on this particular overrun, and I let her know, sure, I'll make that happen. I follow back to my boss, let her know about the conversation with the VP in the elevator, and she blows up at me. She starts yelling and screaming and telling me that I am not even to talk with that vice president or any vice president about this project. I explained to her that, sure, I get it, but it would have been rude to not acknowledge this vice president's questions since we were stuck in the elevator together and I did not seek out that meeting. She then begins to tell me that she has to write me up for being insubordinate and not honoring her request to not email, call, or talk to vice presidents. I am floored, but there's nothing I can do. As I'm leaving her office, she tells me that I made a mistake in hiring you. I thought you were different, but you are just as entitled as all the other men I've hired. Dang! Okay, so this is going really well. Do I go to human resources and have them play their stupid games with me? Nah, not gonna solve anything, especially with a boss that has been at the company for 10 or so years. Human resources generally cares very little about employees and only really worries about risk and protecting the company. They aren't gonna do crap for me, so I don't report any of this. I seriously thought about filing a complaint about my boss's comments to me. But when I had the meeting where I had to sign my write-up, I decided against it given the HR officer had to read the write-up before I signed it, and I figured that since the write-up was based on a BS policy that my boss created out of thin air, I was right in assuming that HR would do crap for me if I had complained anyway. So I just try to get through all this crap and start looking for another job on the side. 2 days later, I get a call from an SVP, to whom the VP from the elevator reports to. Now, my boss also reports to another vice president. This vice president is female and also not the same one from the elevator, and this vice president to whom my boss reports also reports to this SVP. This SVP asks me to come to a meeting that next day. I explain that I'm happy to do so, but I will need to check with my boss first to ensure that there are no conflicts in the schedule. I also state to this SVP that I would appreciate if she would contact my boss as well to ensure that my boss is made aware of her request. SVP pauses and then tells me, no, that won't be necessary in this case, and then hangs up. Crap! So I email my boss and tell her that the SVP is requesting to meet with me the next day and wanted to make her aware of the meeting. She comes storming into my office around 5:30 p.m., about an hour before I usually leave, and closes my door and berates me for a good 20 minutes for talking with the SVP. She was so loud that one of the members of the department in which I worked was about to call security just before my boss exited my office. I knew my boss would be mad, but I didn't expect anything like this. So the next day, I go to the meeting with the SVP. At that meeting is another 3 VPs. The first is the female VP whom I ran into in the elevator and was asking about overruns. The second is the female VP to whom my boss reports, and the third is a female VP that used to oversee the department in which I presently work. The SVP proceeds to ask me about the overruns. I explain as best as I can about the issues involved and also explain that I had prepared an email a few weeks ago about this. The VP whom I ran into in the elevator states that she never got that email on the cost overruns from me. I then explain that it would not come from me, but would come from my boss. The VP asks why I wouldn't send it. I say that it is not my place to send emails to VPs. Then the SVP stops everyone from talking and says, "What did you just say?" I then reiterate my response. Then the SVP begins questioning me about this point. After about 15 minutes of my explaining to them that I am not allowed to communicate with them per my boss's orders, they are all pretty disgusted and frustrated. I then further explain that this policy was created by my boss and has been consistently enforced by her for the past month or so. They tell me that they will have to come back to me on this, but in the meantime, they will get the emails about the overruns from my boss and follow up with her. Crap! So I go back to my office that day and realize that my head is on the chopping block. I am really in a no-win situation and I just have to wait for it to play out. And play out it did. I come into work the next day, it's a Thursday, and I don't think anything has changed. Seems like a normal oppressive day and I'm just waiting for the axe to fall on my head. I work most of the morning and then right before lunch I get an email. The email is from the SVP with all the VPs copied in on it, and my boss is taking some time off and will be back in a few days. During her absence, all requests and management decisions will be made by the VP to whom my boss reports. I'm not quite sure what this means, but given the weekend is coming up, I am just glad this friggin' week is almost over. Day goes by uneventful, and then around 4 p.m., the VP responsible for the department in which I work comes down and comes into my office and tells me, as of that day, my department and I am no longer reporting to my boss, but I was now reporting directly to her. I ask what that means for the department and my job. She said nothing. It just means that the department will be better served under this new reporting structure, given the increase in the amount of business that the department was engaged in since my hire, as well as the strategic internal leverage that would be needed going forward. I also was explicitly told that I was free to now communicate with any other VPs or SVPs of the organization as I saw fit. She then apologized for the experience I had with my boss and told me that she was unaware of my boss forbidding me from communicating with her or other VPs or SVPs. I take this all in, not knowing whom is telling the truth, but relieved that I will no longer have to endure being treated like a child by my boss. I then asked about my boss and her reporting relationship to my department's other team members and was told that she was forbidden to execute orders to them or her own unless she has my prior approval. Karma! I stay at this company for about 3 years total, have a great working relationship with the VP, whom was now my boss, as well as the other VPs and SVP to whom they reported. I only left when I got a better offer in a different industry. My former boss was eventually counseled out over a 3-month period after HR investigated her behavior, interviewed me about the arbitrary rules and communicating with VPs that my boss had enforced on me, as well as her shouting at me and writing me up and disparaging me as a male. Talk about karma. Her write-up of me was used as evidence that she actually had implemented this no-contact policy solely with me, and because she wrote it up and put it in my employee file, it proved my veracity about the entire no-contact issue. In addition, and also compounding the problem, other alleged issues concerning cost overruns, financial reporting irregularities that she had hidden over the years. I have never seen her again, but if I ever do, I would love to be able to say to her, "Great seeing you again. I always tell people that you are the boss that taught me the importance of using email to further my career." Wow, well, I guess sexism comes in different forms. I didn't expect that, but wow, good on this guy for moving on up, despite hardships. This story is called How My Father Got Out of So Many Speeding Tickets They Had to Change the Law. My father has been a lawyer here in British Columbia, Canada for more than 30 years. When he was starting out in his 30s, he was hustling hard to support a stay-at-home wife and me, his young son. As he was very much a type A personality with not much patience, he sped on the highways often, and he got speeding tickets often. However, he took every single one to court and had every single one overturned. The reason was quite simple. At the time, Canada was in the process of switching over from imperial miles per hour to metric kilometers per hour, and all of the road signs had to be replaced. Now, the British Columbia Legal Code specified that a road sign was legally comprised of 2 signs on a pole. Apparently, at some point, someone in charge of replacing all the signs with the new metric ones decided that they could save a considerable amount of money by printing all the information on one sign. But this no longer complied with the specifics of the legal code. So he would go back to the exact sign that he was ticketed because of and take a picture of it, and then bring the picture to court along with a copy of the laws in question. His defense was simple. He would allow the arresting officer to take the stand and give his testimony regarding the issue of the ticket, and then show the officer the picture he took and ask them to identify whether that was the sign he had sped past. They always agreed, saying that it was, in fact, the very same sign. He thanked them and then dismissed them with no further questions. He would then bring the picture to the judge along with the bookmarked page of the British Columbia Highway Act and present the judge with the exact wording of the law, followed by his factual argument that since there was only a single sign posted, it did not constitute a legal road sign as defined in the Highway Act. As I said before, every single ticket was dismissed, and all my dad lost was half an hour of his time. This worked for almost a decade, with him overturning literally thousands of dollars of speeding tickets until the law was changed. He still speeds, by the way. That's why lawmaking is some tricky business, because think of all those legal documents that had to be written out, you know what I mean? And they have to be sure that their wording does not leave any loopholes like this guy found. Or, I guess his dad. That's gotta be some tiring freaking work. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.